Hello everyone, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Is once again a great day for some racing. Just in case, before we get started and we go through and run through how tonight is going to work, I would like to apologize in advance. I have got improved networking equipment, so there shouldn't be any dropouts of the sort this time around. There should be no technical issues, and it's all come through in technical testing. But the downside of that, as you may have noticed from my voice, is that it came at the cost of me. So if you ever hear me muting or suddenly abruptly cutting commentary, that is because I am currently unwell. So apologies for that, but hopefully we should still have some good racing, some good commentary, and it should be fun. Now, to get right into the meat and potatoes of what is happening tonight. First, whether you're here from the F1 audience from our PC F1 League, or whether you're here for our PC F2, you will notice that in the top right corner it says PC F1/F2, and that is because if I head over to the driver's standings, you'll notice I have both, and that is because for the first time in what I assume is a very long time, we are going to be running a multi-class lobby. So to essentially make sure that everyone gets their chance to shine in the limelight, making sure that everyone gets a fair shot. And whereas a F2, they were actually intended to have a commentator at the same time as I'm here with you for F1. They were intended to have a commentator. Originally, that was me, so it is a little bit like a return home, if you will, for me, because I originally started as the F2 commentator and then got moved up. But now we decided, we made a sort of mutual decision to combine the two lobbies together. So we have the numbers for it, we have the space for it, and how it is essentially going to work is they will both be running in the same lobby. They will be, of course, in different races, and it's going to be essentially treated as a multi-class race, as if you were at, say, Le Mans. Of course, you have your GTEs, your LMP1s, LMP2s, LMH, as it will now become in the new regulations, the Le Mans Hypercar. And this will be largely treated as the same, so we will have two races going on simultaneously, so we should definitely have zero shortage of content, and it will definitely be exciting. First time with this new format. It will definitely be exciting to see how this pans out. But as a bit of a recap, of course, the last Grand Prix, Circuit Hermanos Rodriguez for the Mexican Grand Prix, and a little bit of a recap, at least for the F1 side of the paddock. Apologies in advance if you cannot see any of the statistics. We will have a more elegant solution by next round. This is a little bit impromptu. Didn't quite have time to settle all of the graphics. But, of course, we saw a return to form for the peak Mercedes driver that was Emir Durakovic, getting another P1 after the closely fought, the very tightly fought battle between themselves and Cameron all the way back in Jeddah. And really, that is going to be the talk of the season, I feel. The Mercedes quickly picked it back up, held a dominant form throughout pretty much the entire race. They had a very strong lead to the rest of the lobby and just held it. It's a really good management, especially with the different compounds and the different conditions. It was really an exciting sight to see. And we won't dwell on this too long because we are just getting everyone in the lobby now, ready for qualifying. You can see, and it is very nice to see. Of course, you guys can't see it, but it is very nice to see a full, or an almost full lobby of drivers all taking up their respective teams. Now, teams have been accommodated in the best way that they can, depending on who was able to attend from each league in tandem. They have been sort of dynamically switched around just to fill and try and make sure that everyone has identical constructors points, but they will still be calculated and try to make sure that they are as fair as possible for their respective leagues. But to get back to our recap, what happened? Mexico. Ramir, really good return to form. Cass getting another DNF, which is really not good for the Aston Martin. Say they were really punching above their weight, considering that their teammate Morwell, the Aston Martin, has basically not been here to support them in that constructors fight. They have been punching way above their weight in the constructors, and it is for the majority thanks to Cass. I say consistent podium positions and a really strong form, but it's starting to fall away now. It's had 2 consecutive DNFs. Hopefully, while they're not going to be attending this race, hopefully from the next race onwards they will start to see that return and start fighting at the front for the constructors and certainly the drivers, because I wouldn't be surprised that if after tonight, if the performances from Cameron are going to continue like this, of course after the Monaco break, coming back to Jeddah with the P1 and then P3 in Mexico, it is a real showstopper here for the McLaren team. And the McLaren team, constructors wise, have been hitting it out of the park. Both team members have been getting consistent points, both of them really pushing forward that constructors battle to the point where they are starting to make a getaway on Mercedes here. Of course, Frederick not being present for the last race in Mexico, Mercedes have certainly got a tough constructors battle on their hands, even with their front runner really pulling the weight of the train. But following on from that, it really was a race of attrition when it came down to Mexico, one that you'd see more of tracks like Baku and Azerbaijan with Castle section. You would expect a lot more from it there, but it was actually Mexico that turned out to be a lot more of a race of attrition. Drivers not being used to dry conditions, having just come off of a wet quali, and having to deal with that adjustment in race time. Did see a lot of drivers pull out. The Williams team, we need to talk about the Williams team because they had brilliant form, and we've seen this for both of the races they've been a part of. The Williams team have an exceptional pace. We saw that throughout both weekends. The Williams team just need to get their consistency together. They need to get their cars to the end of the race, because if they're not going to get to the end of the race, no matter how well they do, that's still no points. You could set the fastest lap, but if you don't get the car home, that's still walking away with nothing. If you have the fastest driver on the grid, they need to get home. So really, that's one thing that we're hoping to see from both the Williams drivers. I say both have a really good track record of pace, of really setting the bar, putting the challenge to some of the front runners on the grid, and hopefully we can start to see that consistency improve and start to see them taking home some serious points, because even though we haven't got many rounds left, they still have the pushing power to make a serious dent in the constructors fight, and certainly the drivers. But moving away from F1 and a quick recap of F2. So it's been a while since we've seen this board publicly, but Alessio Benesi in the Red Bull taking a pretty dominating show here. In fact, to say overall having more points compared to their F1 compatriot, which would be a mere 5 points more compared to the F1 championship leader at parity, which is quite interesting actually. So it will certainly be unique to see how the dynamics have developed between the F2 League, and certainly how the dynamics will go between the F2 and F1 leagues, because, of course, while they are in separate classes, so to speak, they are still going to be competing on the same track. They will have to be fighting for the same track space. And how that unfolds, we can only wait and see. But Alessio Benesi in the Red Bull with 110 points, followed closely, or I say closely, it is double the points away from the next driver, which is Kent in the McLaren. Nicolait in the Alpine with the 54 points. A real fight for second place going on. I say only 3 points separating second, third, and fourth in the Drivers' Championship. Say Owen in the Mercedes. Jarrell following behind his 10 points gap, 43 points. We're really seeing one thing that I would like to mention. And of course, if you want to read through the constructor standings, they are on screen. One thing I would like to mention is just the spread of podiums, where we've seen F1 take, for the most part, with a few upsets here and there. For example, Liam in the AlphaTauri getting a P3 in Jeddah. we haven't seen that much upset. We've seen a consistent set of drivers regularly take podiums and high positions, or at least expected drivers. But you look at the F2 graph by comparison, and just by the coloured cells alone, you can see how much P1 has jumped around across the course of the season thus far. We've got P1s, to say, from Gaudio, we've got Owen, we've got Nicolites, we've got Scotty, we've got, of course, Alessio with the majority of them, but we've got Byrus. There is a much bigger spread of podium finishes compared to F1, so it's a lot more movement in the standings. And of course, while we have a much higher out-and-out leader, that doesn't mean the rest of the racing is any less interesting. But a quick look into the constructors' standings for F1 at least, before we get into the racing. You can see there, coming off of the Mexico round, McLaren really are closing in on that Mercedes constructors title right now. As if we looked at this at any other point in the season, we would say, yes, there is a gap, there is close, but Mercedes have still comfortably got this. Now I'm not so sure, because McLaren are banging in podiums after podiums, consistent points after consistent points, to the point where I don't know who's going to take the constructors. McLaren are having a bit of a resurgence, both of their drivers being ruthlessly consistent, and it is still anyone's game. It is within that point of contention now that it is going to go down to the wire. And I personally can't wait to see it. But coming off of that, we have a bout for P3, so Aston Martin and AlphaTauri battling it out. Again, the sister teams overtaking their seniors. In this case, Alfa Romeo and Ferrari both not scoring, unfortunately. Alpine getting a very solid points haul thanks to Jelly. A very, very solid points haul. Of course, Coop not being able to participate in the previous round owing to organising F2. Very nice of him, very gracious of him. We always appreciate him and all of the staff within the league. But yeah, let's say that gap between constructors, we're starting to see some positions solidifying, but we're also starting to see things get very exciting and much more interesting. But be sure to hit us with your predictions for whether it's the F1 race, F2 race, fastest lap in qualifying. Let us know all of your thoughts in the chat. I would love to hear them, and we are going to head into the qualifying session now. But here we go. I'll say, as we get ourselves set up here, if you are not aware of, say, who I am, who we are, say, my name is Sappy. I will be your commentator for this evening. Say, I'm commentator for this league, as well as the Forza Horizon community and competitive scene. Be sure to check me out on my Twitch. And of course, if you are enjoying the league's content so far, don't be afraid to hit the subscribe and join the conversation in places like Twitter. But with that all being said, let's get into the racing. In terms of the first to go out, it is going to be the Ferrari of Owen. First to get out on their out lap. We're going to start to see some of the drivers peeling out onto the track here. Looking pretty overcast, so we're not really sure how the weather is going to go. But let's start getting into the action. I'm going to take a look. And just as we take a little bit of a walk of the track, you can see Owen really just trying to get as much heat into those tyres as possible. I think we're going to see a bit of a strategy battle here in terms of qualifying, because with those clouds looming overhead, we don't know whether it's going to clear up or whether it's going to start to rain. And of course, if it's going to start to rain, drivers want to get in dry laps as soon as possible, because no matter what you do, it's going to be slower. So really, it's a race against time, and it's a strategy call for a lot of these drivers to get their out laps and get their dry running in as soon as possible. More people than usual. We have combined the F1 and F2 lobbies. For those who missed the explanation, we opted to combine the lobbies. It makes the lobbies a lot more interesting, essentially runs like a multi-class, and gives everyone a chance to show off their skills in the limelight. So, variety of reasons, but we're in fact going to clean up some of our display here. But here we go. So as we hop on here with Owen, so we're going to see just exactly how they do it and really get a bit of a taste of the pace that we'll hopefully be seeing throughout this session. So here we go, taking a good amount of speed through the second sector, heading into the third, into the chicane. Of course, Ferrari, as of recent, if you watch the most recent race, or the prior race in Imola, you will know, say, Ferrari, particular affinity for that chicane, but good to see that Owen held it together through the first banker lap. I'm going to quickly see how they're doing in overall time. And there we go, as we come to the start-finish straight, first lap of the session is going to be a 1:15.574. Good banker for the Ferrari. Let's see how some of the rest of the time start to stack up. So it's Alessio with a 1:15.6, barely being edged out by the Prancing Horse. And as we start to see more drivers rolling in, it may potentially come to a head. One thing that I'm looking for on, oh, there you go, let's say Amir with a 1:14.2, outstanding pace there from the Mercedes in the F1 division. But one thing we might see is we might see a major reshuffling of the competitive order. And what I mean by that is when it comes down to actual race, you of course will have F1 and F2 competing for the same position. So you might have F2 racers at the top end of the grid and F1 racers down at the bottom. And of course that is really going to shake up how things run, because you want to catch up to your respective class. So here we go, say Matt's taking it round, say 1:15.578 is really, as far as introductory pace goes, it's pretty tightly packed towards the front. Liam with a 1:14.8, that's a brilliant running from him. McLaren, going to quickly check in on them. And with all of these cars on track, drivers are going to have to be wary of traffic also. But let us know who you support in the chat. Say Kent, interestingly, backwards there. Interesting choice. Of course, Amir going to further refine their time. Say Cameron taking a lot of the chicane. So taking a very deep approach into the chicane, but managing to keep the car settled. Bit of a risky line. I wouldn't recommend taking that during the race, but as we come down to the last set of corners and then down to the start-finish straight, what pace are we going to from the McLaren? It is going to be a 1:14.260. That is very close to top running pace. Very good run from that McLaren there. Here we go, as we got the... Oh, Williams missing a front wing. Definitely going to have to call that and say that's probably not going to be a lap that's on pace. Here we go, they've got Yes Lad coming through here, coming for their flying lap. Okay. You've got to say the Alpha Carry stepping out of the way, not being traffic. So Joshua with a 1:14.584. You're definitely seeing some spread start to form and really see the gaps between, say, the best of the drivers floating to the top of the milk bottle that is this lobby. There we go, carrying a lot of speed through the second sector, getting a bit of a wide line there, but holding it. Ooh, big oversteer there. That's going to probably be an abort and a setup, although is still keeping good pace. You might want to just save the banker, considering yes, that has not yet set a time. And as we come through now, we'll sort of see what time is setting, at least the introductory pace. Looks like it's going to be in the 1:15.947. It's putting them at the back end of the grid so far, but of course we'll probably see them rise back through. Here we go, we have Lenny, the second McLaren driver in the F1 League, coming through to set their banker lap. So probably one of the last out of all of the drivers who got a clean first run, because the only ones that we have yet to see a time now are ones that incurred damage, and it's going to be a 1:14.448. Brilliant pace being shown from both of the McLarens in the F1 seats. Very well done. Here we go. We have the second Mercedes driver of Frederick now coming through to set time. Oh, getting very squirrely, barely keeping it on the track as they come to start their lap. Really shows you how, tight and how on the edge that they really are in terms of race pace. Okay, I'm going to quickly interrupt the cast here to sort a technical issue. Apologies for the interruptions. There we go. Apologies for that. Just trying to sort out technical issues in the background. As the only spectator, there are some technical issues that I am unfortunately having to handle, and that may interrupt the cast at points, but hopefully we can get everything sorted before the race. Jelly, if I could have your Steam handle, or if I already have you, that would be great. And all, Frederick is going to come into pits. This is a perfect time. Today, because I do not have you on Steam, I'm afraid. I will need to have your Steam in order to add you to the lobby. Here we go. As we come through here, Rin is going to have an invalidation. Not sure if they've incurred damage or pushed too far again. It looks like their car's fine. Looks like they're going to probably use this as a setup for their next laps. But one we're gonna check on quickly is Kent in the Haas, as they're going to start their race run now. Here we go, as we quickly switch POVs. Oh, interestingly, that should not be a car that is on the grass there. Okay, and we are quickly going to find... There we go. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Okay, there we go. Jelly should have you added. Oh, it's a 1:16.5 from Kent. So not quite the pace that we are potentially looking for, but still a banker lap nonetheless. Top 4 from Swift Racing League. Let's go. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad to have you. Yeah, apologies. Okay, so looks like Flyboy saying with a 1:15.1 at the moment, got another invalidation. So as we've already crossed the halfway point of qualifying, so it is really a race against time right now. Although looking at their teammate, looks like they are on a real flyer right now. It's going to be 1:14.269, just 9 milliseconds behind the first McLaren driver, but that is still a extremely good run for the first Williams. Liam, though, with a 1:14.202, just edging out the Mercedes by 7 milliseconds. This is really a battle for the margin. This is a real battle for the margins here. But qualifying, I feel like as we come to the last 5 minutes now, qualifying is really going to come down to the wire, and we are going to quickly just what should I do? Here we go. Here we are. Right, so Rin, looks like Rin is going to be out for a second runner. Oh, never mind that. You have an invalidation. Now top 5. Rip. No, it's all fair in racing. It's what happens. It is what happens. It's all fair in racing. And here we go. The only person who has yet to set a lap at this point is Frederick. And Liam's going to have to dip off the grass in a big way because Frederick is on an absolute flyer. The last person yet to set a banker lap, and looks like they're on pretty strong pace in all honesty. What kind of time are they going to set? It's looking very promising as we come to the start finish. 1:14.317. Mercedes really putting in a strong performance here in qualifying, both drivers taking the top spots. But really, one thing that I have noticed is that we haven't seen all that many upsets. We've seen the majority of the F1 grid at the top, majority of the F2 grid near the bottom, with the exception of Yes Lad. Now, oh, there we go. Emilia 113.877. We are breaking barriers here. We are absolutely breaking barriers. What a run from the Mercedes there. Absolute flying. Insanity. You can see the amount of, just visually, the amount of pace that the silver arrows are carrying through here. And that is a time reduction. Are we going to see that record be broken again before the qualifying ends? I can't help but watch. I can't help. We're going to have to stay on board with this because this is a masterclass, potentially. If we can see yet another record, say, really good pace being taken through. Oh, and it's going to be an invalidation. No. Oh, it's going to just take too much of the curb, incur track limits. What a shame. That looked like it was going to break that fastest lap yet again. No, on pace. It looked absolutely stunning. And there we go. Every single driver now on the grid has placed a starting time. Here we go. As we see Emir popping into the pit. Cameron is going to go for another run, taking a nice amount of speed through the second sector. Emir really showing some strong pace, but not to be underestimated are the McLarens of Lenny and Cameron. So we're going to hop on Cameron's POV now. I'm going to see them finish this lap, see what kind of pace they're on. They have got an improvement from their previous runs. Can they hold it together and potentially squeeze out a third place or even a second place from their teammate? It's looking very promising. It's come to the start finish here. 113.951. Second driver to cross the 113 barrier. That's an excellent run from the Papaya car. And we are going to quickly just do another one of these. Not sure what is going on there, but there's another invite done. Hopefully we can get all these technical issues sorted. Apologies that it is interrupting the coverage. Sometimes it's a necessary evil of the game, given that it does not have certain functionalities that would make our jobs a lot easier. Here we go as we come through with Joshua. It doesn't look like it's going to be a pacer, so I think that they're going to use this as a setup lap. And this is really the last chance now. We've seen the grid mostly settle out. Yes Lad has got a 114.746, rejoining his F1 compatriots, rejoining his league here. God, what a drive. We are really seeing some of the strength. We are seeing our drivers properly coming out to play now. Joshua's going to go off into the sand, into the gravel even. Really not sure why they do that, considering they were on a setup. But they are in the sand. They are in the gravel and the grass. Not what you want to see. Yeah, and of course now they're really in a race against time, considering they'll be on dirty tyres. So they, optimistically, they have one more chance. There we go. Having a look at. Having a look over here. You can see really trying to get into the heat of his tyres. He's going to go for one last hurrah, I think, and we'll catch up back with them later. But here we go. So they're going to hop on with Scotty here, so one of the higher drivers in the F2 League. We're going to see how the F2 League does it. Really see how we can compare between them and the F1 class. Really, I think the key difference between the two classes is just how aggressive they are. And so you can see here, the F2 drivers, while they still have some very good pace, they tend to play it a little bit more cautiously. You can hear where they're not pushing the throttle nearly as hard, or maybe they're braking a little bit earlier than some of the F1 drivers are. but really it just comes down to how hard they're pushing the lines, how hard they're pushing the car, and that's really wherein the difference lies. Sources say it will rain in the race. We have yet to tell. It's looking pretty overcast, and luckily drivers managed to get all their dry running in. We were expecting a potential shift, but it's a 1:15.163, a good time improvement from the Haas. And this is really the last chance now. Drivers have got to get round before the checkered flag drops at qualifying. They have 25 seconds, and you can see how congested the third sector is as all of the drivers here are pushing to try and get their last shots at a qualifying time in. Say Owen is going to retire, going to be happy with their 11th place, or really second place for their respective league. Very strong showing nonetheless from the second Alpha. Say a 1:14.052 from Lenny is not only going to put them in a very comfortable third place, but it's going to give them a second shot. Really nailing that time. Absolutely nailing it perfectly to get a second shot at a qualifying run. This is really all to play for the McLaren, and it shows. You can see just how hard they are pushing the lines. Emir say 1:13.566 though. My god. And in fact, we're going to quickly hop in and see just how hard this Mercedes is going to be pushing the limits. Mir is just really like extracting the maximum and say, yep, given that it is plus 2 seconds, this isn't going to be the one. But Lenny, 2/10 down, and with an invalidation, unfortunately, they're not going to be able to make most of their chance. Let's take a look at Alessio here. They are going to be a 10th down on their previous. What time are they going to score? A 1:15.269. Not going to be enough to dethrone Owen, though. It's not going to be enough. Coming in, last few drivers now. We're going to have, we're going to have Jelly, our last minute joiner in Jelly in the Alpine, of course, with a 1:14.838, just snapping onto the tail end of the F1 League there. Really nicely done. Of course, last runner here, invalidated time, so sort of taking a leisurely cruise through the field. They're going to be Matt's taking through 14th place, or should we say, give me, I know Scotty actually, minor correction, Scotty's actually got the first place in the F2 League. But there we go. Hopefully people are managing to get used to the split standings here. We will run through it quickly before we start the race. However, that is your qualifying session, ladies and gentlemen. And there we are, just having a quick look through. Oh, what happened there? I believe we had a game crash, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, we're going to be right back. We will be right back. I'm going to quickly recover this. I'm going to try and recover this as quickly as possible. Apologies for the sudden technical issue, but the rain is coming, apparently. We somewhat predicted as such, given the overcast clouds seen throughout the entire of qualifying. Yeah, luckily we caught it at the perfect time. We didn't manage to capture race results, but hopefully someone else will. We'll get a chance to talk about it as drivers are going through formations and joining the new lobby. But that was a pretty exciting qualifying session. We saw repeatedly limits being pushed left, right, and center. All right, we are in. We are in, we are in, we are in. Okay, apologies for that brief hiccup, everyone, but we are back in it now. The race POV should reappear any second here. And here we are. Okay, as predicted, it is a wet weather race. And we say we're going to have full track map. A lot of drivers, if we check with our tyre, everyone is going to opt to go for the inters. So not quite wet enough for full running. Yeah, not quite wet enough for full wet running, but certainly the inters, I say, a lot of water has collected on the track. Of course, we will potentially see, as the track evolves, we'll see dry lines start to form, and depending on if the rain eases away or not, we may even see drivers take a gamble onto dry compounds, but that is yet to see. Of course, the inters, a lot more gentler wearing, compared to something like the of course the inters, say, a lot softer compared to some of the other compounds that we are running, but they also have some unique characteristics. So one we might see is that as the dry line starts to form, the grooves will wear away on the inters, and you sort of have a hybrid slick. Not sure what the AlphaTauri of Liam was doing there on their formation, but dirty tires are the last thing that you want when you're dealing with a low grip config. Rin, Matt, and Boris being disqualified from the session. Really not sure what's happening there. Not sure what occurred there. But we can see drivers are peeling in. So disqualifications left, right, and center. We may see a lobby restart depending on what we do here. Okay, but looks like things are going ahead. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights, and we are away. So let's take it from the top. Starting off, it's a very good move. It's a very good getaway for Lenny. It's a very good getaway for Frederick, who's jumped up 3 positions now. Big moves from the second Mercedes driver, because Cameron dropping down a little bit to the back. Rin really not having a good time. We're seeing some front wing damage. We're seeing a lot of argy-bargy throughout the field here. A little bit of front wing damage through. Looks like Jelly. Someone was missing a front wing from the initial coming together at the first corner. Didn't see any big spin outs. However, still a pretty chaotic first start. And of course, it's somewhat to be expected, given that we are in wet running. So we go, taking a quick look, seeing what's going on. Looks like we're going to be looking for a dual inter. Not sure how the track state is going to evolve over the course of the race, but the double inters not going to be enough for full wets, at least with the current conditions. Yep, so it is insane. A little bit dicey going in, but we're starting to see a queue forming. So far, one thing that we've seen is a pretty big partitioning to some of the rest of the field. Say Callum, Kent, Matt, as they all pretty far behind. Not sure what's going on there, but Lenny is going to get off really well, along with Frederick in all of that first lap chaos. First and third for the Mercedes suit so far. Cameron really not getting the best run out of things, being in 7th place, dropping down 5 positions, not looking good for them, but we have seen their resurgence in prior races, so I wouldn't bet them against them at any point just yet. Of course, with the wet weather, they don't get the advantage of DRS, so this is going to be fought hard and fair on pure racing alone. And of course, dirty air is going to still be a problem. Boris is going to have no choice but to go into the pits, seemingly for damage. Make a pit stop strategy, didn't need that. So, but taking a quick look at the F2 League, so looking pretty orderly thus far. So Owen really sticking on the tail of that Alpine there. Not going to give them an inch to breathe or anything of the sort. So we started to see everyone fan out into the respective. Well, it's going to be a spin for the Ferrari. It's going to be a big spin, luckily managing to stay out of the way of everyone. Brief yellow flag wave for that sector, but managed to keep it under control. Good recovery there from the Ferrari, but of course they have got some serious time to make up if they want any chance of getting a good placement this race. That is not good for Owen, but hopefully they can turn it around. So Emir with a 124.497. Very good pace considering the wet weather running. Looking at our current leader of the F2 divisions, they've got Scotty there, taking a pretty commanding pace. In fact, somewhat encroaching on the space before long of the F1 division here. Which is Joshua just ahead. Scotty getting a very good run and starting to get into the tailwinds of the AlphaTauri up there. That division still holds strong, at least for the time being, but it really goes to show just how close the talents between the two leagues are. Yes, of course they are in separate divisions, but the talent level is by no means slept on. Just because it is an F2 league does not mean they are inferior by any stretch to the F1 guys running up ahead. Taking a look quickly at the F1 League now, as I say, Yes Lad in the first Alfa Romeo is going to concede a position to Cameron, and looks like they're going to be dropping behind quite significantly. It's a little bit of a drop-off there. Of course, they are running positive to their starting position, but not sure why they had to concede in that instance. Either way, they're going to have to be on the catch-up to get back, but looks like it's going to be a little bit of a fight. And say, there we go, he's going to go into the pits. Perhaps it would be for damage. But coming down the start-finish straight, so going to be quite a few jostles for position here. Going to be a bit of a drag race between the Alpine and the Williams. They're going to go side by side to the first corner. Alpine's going to take a lot of the curbing there. Going to get a little bit of contact in with the Williams of Rin. So potentially damage the floor and the barge board. But they've got to be both very careful of each other, both not giving an inch. It's going to be a big coming together between the Alpine and the Williams, but they both keep going, neither of them refusing to yield. This is some serious racing right here as we come to the second sector. Both the cars are still neck and neck heading through. Jelly is going to have to yield because it looks like their pace is starting to fall away a bit. Potentially, did they get front wing damage from that encounter? Rin looks like they've come off a bit better off, say a bit of a better getaway. Looks like Jelly may have potentially suffered some front wing damage from, of course, that big hit that we saw on Rin's side pod. And you can see that Williams starting to get away. I think that is the case. Not to mention the penalty that they would have picked up from the track limits and from the collision. Yeah, you can see big amounts of understeer. That is definitely an indicator of front wing, but they're going to opt to stay out. They're going to opt to stay out, in fact. Dropping behind Joshua now, but by no means are they out of the fight yet. They're really still going to push. Going to stick it with it in the Alpine here, as looks like they're going to, in almost the same place on the next lap, they're going to get into another heated battle. But looks like this one isn't going to come out nearly as long. They really should have pitted, because whether it's visible or not, that understeer is pretty evident, and that understeer is not playing in their favor. They need to get into the pits. They need to get that fixed if they want any chance of staying with the rest of the F1 pack. But hopping back to the F2 League now, we have Alessio in the Red Bull, of course, our current championship, Drivers' Championship sitter for F2. We can see just behind, Matt's getting very out of shape there. He's trying to keep it straight on coming out of the first sector. Not quite holding it as much as they would like, but still keeping it on the track. So Alessio really trying to catch up there to the Aston Martin. Is going to have a good level of pace as he's going to be chasing hard. But of course, in the wet conditions, you have to take those little extra precautions in order to keep yourself safe, keep you as a driver safe. Looking a little bit ahead, of course, we'll come back to them. It's going to be, it's going to be a spin for the Williams. They're going to try and turn it around before the rest of the traffic arrives on the track. They're going to manage to get it done, so going to just get out of the way in time before they incur any issues with the rest of the field. That is close. That is way too close. That was way too close. We are very lucky that yellow flags got waved just before, so that drivers at least had some warning. But that was a big spin and almost blind. Very good driving from everyone who came up on them to avoid a collision like that. Christ, that was certainly scary. Rin is definitely going to be on the uphill from this point. They're going to have to put in the drive of their life if they want any chance of catching up here. Yes, lad, though, all the way down in 18th. Not sure what's going on with them here. They are sort of in their own little bubble. Really don't know what's happened to them. Potentially, I believe they actually had to pit earlier for damage. I think that was why. Now I recall. They're going to certainly have another fight on their hands. They're going to pop on quickly with the Haas of Scotty here, encroaching on the F1 League territory because they're going to be chasing down Jelly. It's going to be a spin. Oh, we're seeing spin after spin here in the league. In both leagues, of course, Scotty going to wait until there's an opening. Oh my god, that was a very unsafe entry. Actually, we saw a lot of traffic coming through there. Very unsafe entry back onto the track. What were they? What was that move? What was that maneuver? Either way, back on track, still managing to avoid incident despite all of the spins and despite all of the rejoins. We have managed to avoid incident so far. So credit to all the drivers where it is due. They have managed to keep it clean, at least between themselves, besides minor contact. But given the low grip conditions, it is almost to a degree inevitable. But ticking back in with the F1 side of the dealings, we're going to see almost a ballet dance between Liam and Cameron here as they're both jostling for positions. You can see almost that elegant switch over between the two as we head through the second sector. So it's a good line from the McLaren, of course, taking the curb, really maximizing, getting a little bit squirrely coming out of that second sector. Not what you want. You want to maximize the speed coming out of there. Get a bit of a run coming on through this chicane so that you can get a bit of an overtake setup going into these last two corners. Looks like it isn't going to quite make it happen, but what is going to happen up ahead is Frederick is going to make a move on Flyboy. Flyboy is going to be looking quite slow. Not really sure what's happening with that Williams up ahead, and hopefully that doesn't spell problems for the Williams team once again. But looking through, so it looks like Williams is going to be going for a move. They're going to be side by side with the Mercedes going in. They're going to get a little bit tail happy. Not going to quite hold it together. Frederick is going to retake the position. Very good driving from that Mercedes right there. Of course, Flyboy, as much as they want to make the move, you saw them encroaching on that space, but you can't do it in the chicanes. You can't do it in this section. It's too risky, especially in the wet, and they made that common sense call. But I feel like this is only going to be the beginning of the fight between these two drivers, because they are still very closely in contention. Of course, checking back in with the F2 League, we're going to have Rin all the way back down here. Of course, from our F1 division, is going to have to fight his way back up the pack now, and has certainly got a difficult job on his hands. Of course, these are multi-class races, but that doesn't mean that they are going to sacrifice their race for the sake of another one that happens to be sharing the track. So Ken, ooh, Rin getting very squirrely, really overdoing it a little bit there with the throttle application. Definitely overdoing it because they got very squirrely coming out there. But the battle for Rin now is not even to secure positions, it's to catch back up to their F1 compatriots who are taking, say, first to about 8th on the grid. So yes, lad, I don't think it is currently connected. I think, say, we saw a prompt earlier that they're disconnected from the session, which is unfortunate. But taking a quick look back up at the front side of things, say Sam and Matt's having a little bit of a battle between the two. Of course, we'll check on them in a second, but Flyboy is, the gap is slightly larger between themselves and Frederick. However, it is still in that state of flux. So it's still anyone's game as to who's going to come out on top. A little bit of an extend from the Williams there. Bit too much, in my opinion. Because you don't want to be abusing track claims, because before long, ooh, controlled slide there from Frederick, managing to keep it together. We're seeing that particular section in Sector 2 being a little bit of a problem child for a lot of the drivers here. While we haven't seen it be the cause of the most spins, we've certainly seen it where we've had to catch some heroics. Okay, Callum getting a time penalty there. Oh, the Flyboy is going to make the move on the inside, is going to get the move at least done for now. So Mercedes is going to have no choice but to tuck in behind. But as we come down the start-finish straight, of course, we're going to get the slipstream heading through to the next chicane. Frederick is going to take the opportunity. He's going to try and get the move done before heading into the chicane. Looks like they've done so. They've got the inside line. With, say, Flyboy, they're going to come side by side going through. Oh, it's very sideways from the Williams, but so from Frederick. They both lost a lot of speed there. Flyboy's going to try and keep their nose in throughout, but it's not going to be done. It's not going to be done. We're back to status quo. We are right back to status quo. But taking a look down further in the field, we're going to see Liam and Cameron. Oh, Cameron's in the wall. Cameron is in the wall. They overcooked it. So it's too much, and that is, I think, it actually is our first wall collision of the race. Yeah, you can see front wing very definitely missing there. They're going to have to go into the pits ASAP. At this point, it is just about limping to the pits as fast as they can and trying not to obstruct the other racers. Oh, that is unfortunate. That is our first wall collision of the race. Despite all of our spins, the other drivers so far have managed to keep it clean. So we go, taking a look. Yep, having no choice. Really just doesn't have the turn in. Front just goes to show you how important the front wing is in these F1 cars with these overbody downforce regulations. Which does get me excited. I will say, it gets me excited for how they'll treat F1 22 when that does come out. Let me know in chat if you are hyped for the next game. I'm tentatively hyped. Looking forward to casting more content for you when that game does drop, because you know I'm going to be going along with that game. So here we go, hopping on with Liam here today, the next challenger. Flyboy managing to get past amid all that commotion. Oh, it's going to be a yellow flag for the second and third sectors. Looks like Virus was the one to spin it this time round, coming out of that little difficult sector 2 complex, but managing to hold it together. Doesn't look like there's any visible damage on their car, which is always nice to see. They won't have to take a pit stop and sacrifice. We're going to quickly check in with Rin now, of course, our charger from the back of the pack. To try and re-secure some positions at this point in time. Stuck behind the Aston Martin of Sam now. And this is where we're going to see a lot more hard-fought positions being made. Emir with a 123.959. Really good set. Really good level of pace being shown here. Say if we quickly check in on the fastest lap, you can see the sort of differentials of pace are not that large. A lot of the F2 are within around a second. So a very good move there by Rin to really taking the position. But you can see a lot of the F2 crowd are at most around a second behind the F1 pace. And it was really close. Oh, big overcook from Rin. Big overcook. But very nicely done. There we go, as we quickly check in. We're going to check in on our tyres there. So Cameron taking the opportunity to get a fresh set of inters in on their car. We might start to see drivers now start to come in at some point. Oh, again, a very big oversteer. Rin, I would say they have brilliant pace, right? And this is just my evaluation as a spectator, as a racer myself. Big dip back from Ken. Not sure what's going on there, potentially having an issue. But we see Rin has exceptional pace, but their key problem comes in when it comes to knowing what the limits are. We've seen multiple times now that they've just overcooked it a little bit, really over pushed the car, tried to extract 110%, and really, more often than not, I say it's been too risky, and that's where we start to see some compromise. So hopefully we start to see that under control. So of course, when you have a driver who's known for pushing the limits and you put them in wet conditions, it's not the best combination for them. So we're going to hop on with Scotty now, so one of our runners in the F2 League, coming up behind their teammate Kent. We're going to potentially see some team play. They're both stuck behind Owen at this stage. So yeah, we may potentially soon be coming up to pit window. Getting my engineering info, Rin has very minimal wing damage and it's affecting him a lot. Yeah, that is a good point to say the wing damage, even if it's not necessarily visible, is going to affect your driving in a big way. I think we see it, say, looking at their steering inputs, they've done very well on their resource management, has to be said, still on about 60%. But just knowing how to temper the limits of yourself, knowing your car's condition. I think Rin will, they may not realize it, but they definitely will when they come into the pits and get a ring replacement, that they need to keep it under control. Need to keep it under control with a evolving track state, with an evolving, big push. I see a little bit of sideways action, as with many of the drivers through that sector. No, for the most part, has done well in keeping it together, all things considered. Although one person that we need to check in on is Cameron. Although what has happened to the Haas of Scotty? We were just about to check in on them and check how they were doing, because they looked like they were going to start making some moves with their teammate on Ferrari. But it looks like that is not going to be happening now, as they had a bit of a spin through the second sector. Pushing it too much, not being able to catch it like a lot of the rest of the other drivers. Okay, but having a look now, we have, say, Matt and Alessio. Looks like gonna have a bit of battle. Matt's pushing it a little bit hard. Matt's pushing it in, but in the search of position. Yeah, that Ferrari getting very sideways, as is the Williams behind them. You might as well be putting initial D. You might as well put in a little bit of Eurobeat on to suit the mood, because that Ferrari and Williams are loving to get sideways in this wet weather. As we see some penalties start to accumulate, potentially for track limit violations. We need to see drivers getting under control. Emir with a 123.226. That's some excellent pace being shown from the primary Mercedes driver. And really, we check in on them now. They are essentially in their own race. They have completely clean track to themselves. So that is pretty good for the Mercedes, all things considered. Really just sort of running in clean air. This is where you can absolutely optimize things like your strategy, optimize your times, because of course with no other drivers to deal with, no DRS as an assistive solution being in the rain, drivers really have no issue in a scenario like this for just pushing and pushing and pushing. The problem is when you start to push too far and you sacrifice that lead that you have gained. So it's always a balancing act, as it is everything in F1. It is always a balancing act, and so far looks like Emir has done that very, very nicely. But here we go, so just hopping on with Matt right now. Apologies for the sudden mutes, as they're just preserving audio quality of the cast. Hopping on with Matt, so say trying to keep it on the tail of Alessio, but that gap has grown. What has happened? Rin has DNF'd. What has happened? What has just happened? We need to see the POV from the incoming Aston Martin. Have they got terminal damage? We need to see. It's going to be a full safety car call. Looks like they hit the wall. That is a wheel gone. That is them out of the race. That is them fully out of the race, coming out of Sector 2. Unfortunately, we can't have a replay for you here, which is unfortunate. We say we don't have the multiple POVs, but to have what was such a good charge for a higher position, to have such a good charge back to the F1 pack, and then to overcook it in DNF. I believe that is the third DNF in a row from that Williams car. Really unfortunate, but you can see what a lot of the F1 grid and F2 Grid have done, for that matter, is use the opportunity to get a free pit stop. This lines up perfectly with a lot of the pit windows of the drivers. So in the case of a lot of the F1 crew, they are coming in now for their pit stop, although Emir is going to elect to stay out in order to secure track position behind the safety car. Interesting choice, considering they are on inters that have worn by this point. Yep, they are on worn inters, don't forget. So if we take a quick look at, say, our tyre data, you can see about half of the grid, and this is going to be big mix-up. So you can see Callum in the F2 League is mixed right in the middle of the F1 pack right about now. So how that is going to affect the F1 divisions race, we have yet to see. But Emir, as well as Flyboy in the Williams, have opted to stay out and retain track position as opposed to getting a free safety stop, getting a free stop behind the safety car, which I find quite curious. There we go. So Cameron is interestingly going to slot in behind the safety car. And why are they not unlapping themselves? I see they have no choice but to stay behind the safety car. You saw that ghosting there. And of course, in line with the whole rule of drivers not being allowed to unlap themselves unless advised to do so. There we go. You can see Cameron yielding to Amir, say retaining proper track position, and going to drop back. And drop back there. We're going to start to see the convoy of cars forming up now properly. So as we take a look, start to see everyone catch up to munch up behind the safety car. I say, unfortunately, I know that you said they had minimal wing damage. Looks like that came back to bite them here, because I was going to say that under the safety car, you could get the free pit stop, repair the wing, get fresh tyres, and get back out, because they were the one that caused the safety car. Here we go. Looking through the pack, pretty much everyone has taken that free stop. The only exceptions to the rule being Yeslad, who has, I believe, disconnected from the race. Callum in the F2 League, who is currently holding lead position, but of course will have to pit at some point. They need to change those tyres. And as I say, we've just got word from race control via the Discord that despite being in the safety car queue, lapped cars will still have to obey blue flag rules. And that is just in from the private Discord. I was stealing my strategy. It worked out last night for me. Oh, okay. Well, interesting strategies. We're seeing it all playing out here. It's all coming to fruition. Say, Callum, Flyboy and Mia, and Yeslad, who is disconnected. They are the only drivers who have opted not to go in and to preserve their track position. And as we've been saying, that's a big gamble. They have to change their tyres at some point. It's just a case of whether they can fully capitalise on that. So apologies for any noises coming from me, as I'm still currently unwell. Wrong chat. Nice. Nice. Okay, well, here we go. All of the cars are now queued up behind the safety car. Everyone is starting to properly form up. Seeing a little bit of a position change. Of course, Cameron dropping back now. Trying to drop back and take their proper... Whoa! What is going on there? Cameron! What just happened there, mate? What was that? They don't have to pit. That is true, they don't have to pit. It is just a very big gamble, because given these positions and it being right on the pit window, you would want to capitalize on this situation. And while you of course don't have to pit, it would be optimal in terms of pace and maximizing your pace out. But so here we go. Hopefully we should be seeing the safety car in this lap, and there we go. That is the confirmation right there, right on cue almost from race control. Not really sure what Cameron's move there was on Jelly. I believe that will definitely be investigated by the stewards and potentially a penalty handed out. But they will have to celebrate the safety car right away by going into the pits, getting a fresh front wing. And here we go. As we come to the start finish straight, Amir is going to set the pace. It is going to be safety car in. Away we go. Lenny immediately going to take full capitalization. It's going to be big moves up and down the F1 field. Oh, it's going to be contact between the Williams and the AlphaTauri. It's going to be all to play for. It's going to have to take no choice but to take the escape road for Liam. Bit of a deep entry. Going to come into close contact there with their teammate. Going to quickly check in on how the rear end of the grid is doing. You have a ghost out from Virus there. But they will have to still respect blue flags there. It's going to be a... What has happened? Let's see. Oh, okay. Sam is in the wall. Sam from the F2 League in the Aston Martin. In the wall, losing their front wing. Not getting a good exit out of the chicane. Potentially coming together with someone on track. Not good for them. But taking a look now, say Ken and Nikolai's going to have a bit of a battle going into the second sector. Eventually going to get the position, but coming through second sector, don't push it too hard. It's going to be good control. Now they're on the chase from Owen. It's going to go for the move as well. Going to dip a little bit into the grass. Going to get the move potentially done. Taking a lot of the curb. Pushing out. Not really getting the speed that they want. And it's going to be Nikolai taking full capitalization. Getting a double overtake. What a good move. Great use of strategy there as we head through. Going to really just block off. Great defending from the Alpine there. Owen's going to be forced out and going to have no choice but to dip into the gravel and dip back behind Kent there. In fact, it's going to opt to go into the pits, potentially incurring damage from that encounter. Not looking good for them. But taking a quick look back up at the front of the grid, one that I am curious for is Jelly, how they came off of that interaction under the safety car between them and Cameron. I don't believe they sustained any damage, luckily, which is good for them, because last thing that they want is any damage. Oh, it's going to be a yellow flag wave for Sector 2. Not really sure what's going on there. Can't really see anything from the aerial. I think it's just a minor hiccup. Yep, no, looks like Virus has left the session and thus has been full ghosted. Cameron is going to be out though. What? We can't see from their POV. It's going to be another safety car. It's going to be another safety car. Hopefully we can see from the Aston Martin POV. Nope, unfortunately it has despawned. Not sure what happened, but Cameron is out of the race. I think they just took too much speed on that chicane exit and just piled it into the wall. Unfortunate, but that is what happens in racing. It's going to be another safety car, and again Amir opting to stay out once again and stay out on their 21 lap old Inters. Might start to see some wear going into those tires there. There we go, slowing right down. We are back again, almost as if by rehearsal. We are back in under safety car queue. And as we see everyone start to pile in, a few drivers are going to take advantage of it. Although not everyone needs to. The Inters are so young at this stage that it might not even be worth going in for a free pit stop, because it's not even going to be worth the time loss. Although if you are at the back of the grid, there really is no harm if you've got a lot of track space, because newer tyres, of course, always better. And if you're not going to lose any positions, then it is technically nothing lost, because you'll just regain the positions or regain the lost time under the safety car anyway. So here we go, taking a look up and down the grid. So we've crossed the halfway point in the race. We have 10 laps to go. First place is going through the F1 division first. We have first with Emir with a very strong pace setter. 123.226, really just setting an astounding pace of the race thus far. Next up, we have Lenny with a 124.087. Flyboy with a 123.522. Very good pace also from that second Williams, and has always been a strong contender since they joined the league after the Monaco break. Frederick in fourth place. Good return to form for the second Mercedes driver, and good return to the league that they have had after the last couple of races not being so good for them. Of course, we have the AlphaTauris, 5th and 6th, 1.24.2 and 125.1. So a bit of a differential in pace there. Starting to see the 125s and 126s, but still very strong performance from the AlphaTauri suit here. And then following that, we have Jelly in 7th place for the F1 League, 125.532. Peak pace, of course, came in very late. Didn't have much time really at all to acclimatise to the track. So with all that considered, still a very good performance so far. Finally, we have Yes Lad at the very back, who I believe did retire from the race, as well as Cameron and Rin, who unfortunately did DNF at various points, owing to incidents on the track. And then going through the F2 division, currently first place, we have Callum in the Aston Martin. We have Alessio closely behind in the Red Bull. So we've seen 125s and 126s across the board for the F2 League pace. So again, as we said earlier, not very far off at all from the F1 division. It goes to show how tight the margins are and how hard everyone is racing here tonight. But second place, Alessio with a 125.7. Nicolites with a 125.8 in the Alpine. You have the two Haas drivers of Kent and Scotty, 125.9 and 25.4 respectively. Then we have Mats with a 25.4, Owen with a 25.7, Sam with a 125.9, and Byris with a DNF. But there we go, that is your two divisions. Hopefully it has been enjoyable. Be sure to like the stream if you have enjoyed so far. And depending on how the leagues go, we might potentially see this multi-class return in some form, because I've certainly found it exciting, and I hope that you have too. Means that everyone gets some coverage, and means that we all get to see some exciting racing, even from unexpected contenders. But here we go. So as we come through the last lap now of the safety car parade, and looking at the stops, you can see that the only drivers who have yet to take a stop is Amir, Flyboy, and Callum. And hopefully they are very good with tyre management, especially in the case of Amir, because those inters, as hard wearing as they are, they will still be worn. They will still see a reduction in grip. Given that we are on the last laps of the race, it's not worth it at this point to change over. It is not worth it to get a fresh set. So really, at this stage, it's about managing those tyres as best they can, so trying to keep the heat in them when they're possible, trying to negotiate the varying grip levels of the track, and just bring the car home despite those aging rubbers. So here we go, safety car will be in this lap. Of course, if you have enjoyed the racing so far, and you want to talk about it, be sure to join the conversation over on Twitter. So we are on Twitter. It's where a majority of our interaction happens. Interaction with our sponsors like Grid Finder. Great team to work with. And there we go. That is the confirmation from Race Control that safety car is once again in this lap. And hopefully should be the last time we see the safety car and we get back to some exciting racing. So here we go, you can see it sprinting away. Frederick following closely behind to his teammate, trying to get the gain up. Going to see if they're going to get a good team play, but Amir is going to be setting the pace, slowing right down, going to try and get the best launch. So we see the safety car coming into the pit. The racing is going to recommence. It's going to be last minute grab of heat in those inters before racing is fully away again. That is the green flag. We are good to go racing once again. Of course, like we saw last time, it's going to be a big cluster coming into the first chicane. It's going to be some big dives in, a lot of curves being taken. It's going to be a spin from Frederick. It's going to be a light spin, luckily no damage, but not what you want to see from that second Mercedes. Got very unlucky in all of that, dropping all the way down to 15th place. Not looking good. Not looking good by any stretch. But you see a bit of a bad run there from Yahas, who's going to take a big dive bomb, go straight into Matt in the Ferrari. Bit of a dirty move there, has to be said. Not quite the move that we are potentially looking for, and Owen's going to have to take a little bit of evasive action. Wasn't expecting the braking from Ecolites there. So here we go, as we just quickly reset all of our data points. So here we go, so we're going to quickly tune back to the front of the grid, and in fact we're going to quickly take a look at the middle, so get the best view that we can of the front running fighting. Say Joshua there trailing on the Alpine of Jelly, who has made very good on the safety car restart. Has managed to get into 5th place, which is a very good showing for this league. Say Alessio and Callum have switched places here, and it's going to be a big switch up. Cameron has dropped off in a big way, immediately conceding positions to Alessio and Matt here. Are we starting to see the potential drop off now of those inter tires? I have to guess that we are, but say Matt's going to have a little bit of a peek on the inside, isn't going to go for it as we head to the first chicane, is going to get a good run, really get on the tail of that Red Bull right there, and is not going to give him an inch to breathe as we head into the next sector of the track. Not going to get the best line through there though. It's going to compromise that lead they have, but it's still going to have a good gap to the rest of the field. Looking on though, we say we have Callum say really dropping off in terms of pace there. It's not looking good for that Aston Martin. Have they sustained damage? They could potentially have sustained damage from the safety car restart. That could explain the pace deficit. Oh, it's a big corrective action as they get a bump from none other than their teammate. And of course that is going to cause a bit of a concertina effect throughout the rest of the field. Nicolites is going to have to go wide, take some evasive action and compromise their position on track. A lot of chaos happening up and down the field. So these last few laps, everything is down to the wire here. It's going to be Joshua going for a potential move, getting it around the outside of Jelly here. Gets the move done heading into the start and finish straight, but can they hold it? So they got a pretty good run heading down through that last corner. Jelly, while close, isn't going to have that slipstream, isn't going to have that toe, nor the DRS to assist them in making the move back on the AlphaTauri. They're going to close the gap, but it's not going to be enough here. One thing that we are going to see, a bit of a battle in the F2 League, is Alessio and Matt trading positions. So trading positions there. Matt's getting a little bit shaken up, taking a bit too much of the curve than they would like, potentially dirtying a couple of their tyres, which is not going to do well for grip levels, especially in the last pack. The last part of this race is all to play for. You do not want to leave anything to chance or give any inch for anyone else to capitalize. But here we go, looking from the aerial, can see Liam not getting the best exit out of the second sector, and they are now going to have to be on the defense from Flyboy. You can see they were trying to peek their nose in and didn't quite have the momentum, but they may have the momentum this time round. You can see that gap is closing as we head to the last couple of corners. Liam is going to take a defensive line, going to hold the inside, not going to let Flyboy take it despite how close they got, and they are going to be hot on the heels of that AlphaTauri. They are hungry for that podium. Flyboy is hungry for that podium, and he's not going to give it up so easily. See, going for the charge here. He's going to try and go for the inside, not going to go for it because, again, Liam has got the inside line. It's going to be a bit of contact, a little bit of a dirty pass, but nonetheless, the pass is going to get done between Flyboy and Liam here. and that gap has started to grow. Not sure if any damage occurred as a result of that, but Frederick has opted to retire from the session. What has happened there? They've gone back into the pits. They've called it time. Really upsetting, considering they had a bad safety car restart, but they were otherwise making good progress through the field. A bit disappointing, but that is racing. You can see Scotty and Callum going neck and neck heading into the second sector here. Callum has really dropped off in terms of pace, as we've been saying, but can they minimize the damage control? They are still in the points contention for their league. A little bit of contact there with the Haas of Scotty. It's going to be a sector 1 yellow flag. Not sure what's going on there from, say, Frederick AI. They're going to be stopped on track, but there we go. Quickly resolved, quickly cleaned up. Not really sure what happened there. Bit of a quirk of the game. But heading back to our fights is going to be Scotty's going to be making a move on the outside of Callum. So we're going to the last 2 corners. It's going to have the inside heading into the last sector and into lap 29 here. It's going to be a convincing move. The move is going to get done. We're going to have a quick look because it looks like Jelly and Joshua are fighting for P5 here. Jelly is going to sacrifice the position. Is not going to quite have the speed. Potentially have a little bit of contact as well. We did see that on switching the cams. And say not taking the best line through the hairpin either. Getting very squirrely. Really just shows you how hard it's trying to push it and make up that time. Was not happy about conceding the position in the last couple of laps nonetheless. There we go, that AlphaTauri really starting to run away with it here. Looking good. But one that we've seen is, say, Joshua. What's happened to Joshua? In fact, we didn't see what happened. Looks like it was going to be a spin. That's what happened. It wasn't a chase. It wasn't that they were getting away from Joshua. It's that Joshua had spun out and now are struggling to get the car together. Say they're missing their front wing. They must have had a big off heading into the second sector. Now, of course, that is the last thing that you need at this point in the race. They've come so far only to have your front wing lopped off from a top 5 position. Last thing that you would ever want in a race situation. Really unfortunate. They're heading on with the next closest fight, moving on to their teammate, which is Liam, the second AlphaTauri. And you can see they're trying to make up positions and make up time on Flyboy, but Flyboy is just nailing those apexes, really carrying as much speed as they can through those inters, and is just consistently making it work. Really just consistently getting a car to work as they want. You can see that gap being consistently around a second and occasionally growing where they get it just right. Emir looking on here, so if we look at the tires, don't forget that Emir is on 29 lap old inters, and so is Flyboy for that matter, and Callum. We say we've seen the pace drop off potentially start to kick in because Flyboy, Emir is not getting away. In fact, we're seeing that gap very slowly getting smaller and waning. So potentially Emir's big gamble of not to pit at all. Good to see a full grid, 2 classes battling out, F2 and F1. It's certainly been exciting and I've certainly enjoyed it. Hopefully we can see this more often. And having those full grids back is always nice. No shortage of commentary here. And here we go. We're going to hop on with Lenny here. Of course, we are on the second to last lap and they have 1.5 seconds to recover. Emir, much older inters, but inters with their unique characteristics. They are still holding the pace compared to what Lenny is currently able to do. Oh, Lenny, big overcook, really losing that advantage quite quickly. And you can see the tense quickly rising up. That's the last thing you want if you were on the charge to first place like this. And really, I think that move, that mini mistake has just sealed the deal between themselves and the Mercedes of Emir here. But there you go. As unfortunately, McLaren cannot reap that consistent constructors points this time round with Cameron in the wall and out of the race during this event. which is unfortunate. Say they had very consistent showing. Say Lenny continuing the consistent tradition, but it's not to be this time round. Ken is going to try and potentially make a last-minute move. Emir's going to set the pace of the race and say, what a way to show dominance on the track with a last lap, 1 minute 23 PB, and fastest lap of the race. But here we go. So Ken is going to go very deep, take a lot of the curb there, potentially damage their floor as they head through the chicane into the third sector, and really is just going to scuff up the move. They didn't get the move done. That is the opposite of what they really would have wanted. And now, unless some sort of miracle happens, they're going to be stuck in that position. They're going to be, unfortunately, stuck in that position. But having a look, and we're going to take a little bit of a victory lap here. Say 3.5 seconds away from the McLaren, who's, while they were starting to catch up, that is only a distant memory now. But Emir is going to be taking it home. Here, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like the fate is well and truly sealed. 31 lap old Inters, stretching one set of tyres all the way to the end of the race. Really good tyre management on display here. But here it is, returning back to P1, a very familiar sight for the Mercedes driver. It is going to be Emir who wins the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. What a move that was. Although, that being said, Owen, not sure what was going on with Owen. On the last lap, they have spun and they have sacrificed. They've sacrificed their position on the very last sector, on the very last hurdle. They're done. What a shame there for the Ferrari. Really, at their home territory, the Tifosi are not going to be the happiest of bunnies, coming so close to greatness. And with Jelly stopped on track, I see. Coming in with a stylish finish, we'll say. Coming in with a stylish finish in the Alpine, breaking their front wheel, but still making it across the line. But that is certainly a way to finish the race. I say Sam, for their brilliant performance throughout in the F2 division, is going to get the driver of the day here. But here we are. Of course, a very familiar sight, one that we might be used to by this point. But of course, the ruthless consistency of that first Mercedes C cannot be understated. There's going to be Emir taking another P1. But there we have it. There are your final race standings. To say we have Emir taking the race win. Lenny with a second place, doing very well for the McLaren suit. And Williams making their first appearance on the podium for Flyboy. So following that, we have Liam. A surprise appearance from Alessio, deep in the heat of the F1 leagues. Managed to score a proficient P1 here at the Imola circuit. In P5 overall. Jelly in the Alpine, say Sam, Matt, Scotty, Owen, Ken, Callum, Nikolite, Joshua, and we have the rest of the grid, if it would let me advance. But what a brilliant set of racing. Honestly, I am very happy to see a full grid of drivers once again. It was a brilliant show of racing. We saw battles up and down the field. It was truly a spectacle. If you have enjoyed the stream, be sure to like it, give it some support, show us that you love it. Join the conversation over on Twitter. Of course, I've been your commentator, Sappytron. It's been a pleasure casting for you this evening. Let us know over there on places like Twitter, and of course checking out places like our website if you want to keep up with all of the action involved with the league, its runnings, and how you can potentially get involved and get your own spots there in the running that you saw today. So of course, entries are always welcome into any league whatever platform that is. Say if whether you're PlayStation or PC or whatever, you're always welcome. So we run a multitude of leagues, and of course, if you want to see more from me personally as caster, as I said, I'm also a commentator for the professional Forza scene, and for just in general, a content creator myself. So if you would be interested in me, then feel free to join over on my Twitch. The link is in the chat also. But with all of that being said and done, it has been an absolute stonker of a race, and I hope you all enjoyed. It has been great fun, great pleasure. Hopefully we can see this format continue, because it has been exciting every minute. And we of course will keep you updated on the runnings of the league. One too many spins for me, I feel that. Yeah, well, excitement can have many different definitions, Scotty, but brilliant racing from all of the drivers today. Everyone should be proud of themselves and the result they took home. And in terms of where we are going to next, so whether you see me with just the F1 or if we run another multi-class, be sure to join us next week, because next week we are heading to Paul Ricard. We are heading to the French Grand Prix, so don't miss a thing. Be sure to subscribe if you want to keep up with the rest of the season. We're running out of races. We're coming to the last few races of the season now. We've only got 4 more. That Drivers' Championship is for the taking for both leagues, the drivers and constructors. It's all coming down to the wire now. So don't miss a thing. It's been a pleasure. And of course, I will see you next Wednesday, same time. Have a good night, everyone, and we will see you then.